Hey there, it's Dad Who Games. Can you believe it's been 2 years since I last logged into this game? That last build really burned me out. And honestly, I uninstalled the game after I uploaded it to the EA gallery. But here we are. And since I already have full-length videos for all but one of these builds, we're going to exclusively look at them top-down, in order to have the floor plans be the main focus of the video. I've even got side-by-side comparisons with what I've created to the original video game maps. I just don't think you can get any more accurate without custom content. And I don't use custom content, so it is what it is. These builds are also huge, so let's not take up any more time and jump right in. Resident Evil, Silent Hill, and Visage in The Sims 4. My most comprehensive adaptation, the Spencer Mansion, was the first build I thought of when I was introduced to build mode, and it became so much more than just a big house. The entire original video game is represented here, from mansion to courtyard and guardhouse to underground lab. Every location is here. Specifically, I focus on recreating the original 1996 installment of zombie horror. However, some parts, like the library and the balcony around the dining room, were taken from the 2002 GameCube remake. The reimagined mansion just incorporated a lot of cool architectural additions that I felt really completed the location. That being said, I knew going in that I would not be able to fully recreate the build exactly like the video game, especially without custom content. So I designed the entire aesthetic with the intent of harnessing the spirit of the game, using what assets Sims 4 provided. That's why I actually didn't reference any images of the game, aside from the maps, when building it. In fact, this is true for all of my builds. They are all done from my memory of the games. I played them all so much that they are ingrained in my mind. My biggest achievement with this build was to use the first floor of the basement sublevels as an outside area. The entire courtyard and guardhouse are technically underground, but just with ceilings removed. Using tons of greenery helped mask the transitions from ground floor to basement. Which isn't to say that the basement levels aren't impressive, and in fact, I would consider them my second biggest achievement. For one, the original game maps legitimately work in how they're connected, which is to say that when I recreated the maps exactly in The Sims 4, the unrelated underground passageway and underground lab areas end up being right up against each other. So, because it was impossible to really emulate a dank cavernous passageway, I instead decided to connect two maps and made a large portion of the former Hunter Plague caves into an extension of the underground lab. I mean, turning the giant tarantula cave into an office space? I honestly think it makes a heck of a lot more sense than a random underground passageway, but what are you gonna do? The sheer size and all-encompassing nature of this build keeps it at the top of my list of my all-time favorite Sims 4 builds. It's the entire game in a single 64x64 lot. I mean, come on. I live streamed building this too, but that was on Twitch. And well, your videos don't stay put there. I've long since switched to YouTube for my streaming, which I do intend to do again, as well as become a bit more regular with my videos, but I mean, I'm a teacher, so during the school year, I'm already limited on time. Resident Evil was my first experience with survival horror, so it was only natural for me to have it be my first in The Sims 4. Oh, the immortal Raccoon City Police Department. My most viewed video on my channel, the mansion of Resident Evil 2 is represented in the same manner as the Spencer Mansion, in that it's all from memory and combines a bit of the original and the remake. I mean, I'd say this is primarily based on the remake. The modern take at the station makes it so much more realistic and believable. I've added the entire third floor of the remake, for instance. The original didn't really have one. And unfortunately, it just simply wasn't feasible to include the entire game in a single lot. The second game in the Resident Evil series offered an extremely larger playing field. That's why I kept this build at only the police station itself. In hindsight, I could have added the exterior streets like my Resident Evil 3 build, but it really doesn't detract from what I've made. Oh, and I didn't include my Resident Evil 3 builds. They just aren't as impressive in my opinion. Anyway, I went for a specific theme in designing the inside of downtown. Police stations clearly have a separation between where the public is allowed and where police are permitted. Well, throughout this build, I've made such distinctions by keeping all public spaces with the woodworked walls and the police portions brick. It's something I'd expect to see in real life, and well, to be honest, the combination of the two just look really nice. The biggest challenge with this build was the central statue secret passageway to the hidden office and elevator to the basement. I did the best I could in linking them and keeping true to the floor plans. But other than that, this was actually a really simple build. So of course I upped the decorating to compensate the effort. The library really is the star of the show, I'd say, but I'm not going to deny my pride of having used enlarged filing cabinets as the corpse storage of the morgue. Could be fitting in some satirical way, but effective nonetheless. In case you're wondering, no, I have yet to experience the remake of Resident Evil 4, but you can be assured that I will. I might even be inspired to return to The Sims 4 for another epic build. I'm not there yet, but holy crap, I'm down for the remake. The other remakes were phenomenal. Yes, Resident Evil 3 was pretty short, but so was the original. I might have to replay them. Oh, it's been a long time since I've gotten excited at thinking of gaming. Anyway, you'll see that I have a lot of the debug and live edit assets, like the cars, throughout this and my other builds. I'm actually quite certain that this mod led to my corrupted Pyramid Head apartments, so whereupon I do build more, it will be 100% free of any mods or custom content. And off in a corner of the morgue, an oversized filing cabinet sheds a tear. While not nearly as impressive as Spencer Mansion, this is a solid representation of the RPD. Oh, and totally random, did you know that the background music is actually all of my original music? You can go find A Dad Who Games on SoundCloud and check out my jams. Okay, no, I will never say that again, you can be sure. Alright, so unlike the Resident Evil and Silent Hill games, Visage does not have a map. That's pretty much as designed as you explore the terrifying house of Dwayne Anderson. Or, well, any of the... never mind. The game is best experienced knowing nothing at all, but to be clear, it is terrifying. And also incredibly confusing with how the house itself is laid out. As I walked around the house over and over looking for the most minute of clues, I didn't really understand the layout of the house. It is a labyrinth of a home, and to make it into a Sims 4 build, I had to get creative. Honestly, I really don't know how to explain it aside from my having used massive amounts of platforms, and again, as with the Spencer Mansion, mess around with the basement levels. I actually did reference images from the video game with this one, and I even tried to recreate it, but it just simply is too believably real to even have a chance of being accurate in The Sims 4. So instead, I decided to simply imagine that a new family had moved in. I don't know. Suffice it to say that it still looks and feels like the Visage house, even though it really doesn't. You know what I'm saying? I just wish there'd be a follow-up to the game. It doesn't have to be a sequel, but just another psychological mind spin. There's really not much more to say about this build. When all is said and done, it's just a house with a ridiculous floor plan. Okay, now here's an example of my thinking to myself, how could I top the Spencer Mansion? Oh, well, not by building an entire hospital and its matching demonic versions in the basement level, no! That would be too easy. Nope, we're going to put 2 hospitals and their alternate dimension counterparts in one lot. Yeah, after I built Alkimical Hospital, the one in the front from the original Silent Hill, I noticed a whole lot of space in the back area like I had with the Raccoon City Police Department. For whatever reason, I decided to add Brookhaven Hospital from Silent Hill 3. If you're not familiar with the Silent Hill series of video games, the primary setting is a town that at certain times is a semi-normal, abandoned town veiled in mist. But when the sirens go off, it all melts away to a demonic version of the same place. Like when it switches to the other world, the maps stay the same, but everything else changes into something disturbing. I try my best in lining up both versions side by side so that you can see how it stays the same but changes drastically all the while. So this build is essentially 4 separate hospitals, if you count the evil ones separately. This honestly turned out to be a rather enjoyable build, albeit a long one. The whole concept of making the evil alternate realm counterparts really kept the build dynamic and not at all redundant. It actually was in making the otherworldly version of Brookhaven that I got the idea for the apartments having a large open-aired area underground. Alas, if only I knew what headaches would come. Now, the hospitals are hospitals through and through, with all of the expected departments and locations, but for the otherworld version, I needed to get creative. In the video games, it's always rusted and industrial, with large fans, fences, barbed wire, and, well, everything you'd expect from a hellish industrial world. I decided to come up with different industrial themes for each of these Silent Hill builds. For Alkimical, I went with the traditional evil hospital theme with good old patient experimentation and punishment departments. For Brookhaven, on the other hand, I went with an offshore drilling rig. Yeah. See, I really went for making catwalks instead of hallways in the other world, and with Brookhaven, I made an imagined abyss over which the catwalks hang. I think the empty pit had me thinking of a tower standing in the midst of it all, like an oil rig. I don't know, but it all worked out in the end, for all I really wanted to do was make a completely chaotic variation of the hospitals from the normal world. I would rank this build as my second best build under Spencer Mansion. This one is simply huge and completely unique in every aspect among each of the 4 hospitals. Alrighty, here they are. I'll stick with the logistics to start, and we'll see how far I get into the personal gaming trauma that led to my abandoning the game. Okay, so this build is 2 separate apartment buildings. In the game, Blue Creek is more of a closed wing of Woodside, but due to space, I just moved Blue Creek to its own spot in generally the same position from the original floor plan. Woodside is super modern because recreating the video game style just wouldn't really look all that great. So instead I imagined that this was some new low-income housing recently built, but never used, like its silent potential that never came. Blue Creek is simply an old apartment complex. Every room of Woodside and Blue Creek, respectively, are essentially identical. The only difference that I went for was simply rearranging the same set number of pieces I gave to each room. I then just copied and pasted each floor before individualizing how it looked on the outside. It was the first attempt at making the Otherworld that my issues began. I fully built and designed both apartments as well as an alleyway of garages that also appeared in the game series. All was set for the massive open-air basement plan. For whatever reason, though, my attempting to build the Otherworld after having built everything on the above-ground levels made it impossible. I then completely redesigned the entire build and made sure to fully build every location, sans any decorations, to assure that it all worked. It did, and I commenced designing what you now see before you. However, when I started the new Otherworld design, it kept crashing. After several times dealing with this, I noticed that it seemed to be related to lighting and the debugged assets I had all over the place. I mean, I had nearly covered every inch of the build in garbage piles. There were thousands. For the third attempt, I didn't rebuild the place. I removed absolutely every item. Enter redesign number 3, and what would become the final effort. Despite having overcome the crashing, the amount of assets I had in this place, and all the lights reflecting on multiple surfaces, made the game lag severely. I mean, placing a wall or changing its color would take at least 10 seconds to register. So the final moments of design took forever. But in the end, I successfully turned the apartments into a sewage treatment plant with living quarters for employees. My goal was to make a massive open-air basement with catwalks, canals, and even an aqueduct. I absolutely pushed what I could and couldn't do with this one. Do I like the build? Well, after looking at it for the first time in 2 years, I'd have to say that this build is absolutely far beyond my expectations of what I had accomplished. The Otherworld is simply amazing, and something seriously to be proud of. Or, well, as proud as one could be for a video game achievement. It's odd, though, that throughout my revisiting these builds, I've gone up and down on my interests of building something else. Part of me is finished. Part of me recalls that I have an entire empty mall waiting to be populated with assets akin to Silent Hill 3. Again, only time will tell. Your input and support could also affect my trajectory. Maybe I'll try to make it some sort of subscription goal. If I get X amount of subscriptions by whatever point, I'll do another epic build. I don't know. We'll see what happens. My content has been rather slow recently, but please note, it's all temporary. Real life is really interesting sometimes, and, well, summer's coming, so I'll be able to approach this more clear-headed, and hopefully my own personal real-life situation will come to an end. Please. So please subscribe if you enjoy my company. And like this video, if you like it. Otherwise, you can also find A Dad Who Games on Twitter, Imgur, and SoundCloud. But I also go under the name McCatton on DeviantArt and ArtStreet if you'd like to see some of my illustrations. I'm all about making enjoyable content for you, so you might enjoy these other efforts too. But I think I've said about all I can about these builds. They truly are insane, and I honestly can't believe that I spent the time to build them. and hopefully I have managed to make my fellow survival horror nerds smile grandly. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you next time, and until the next, have a day.